Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. My name is Brianna and this is 4 Paws in a Book. I make book and lifestyle related content, so if that's something you're interested in, make sure that you hit the subscribe button down below. Today is the last day of the best of 2022 genres and we're talking about fantasy. 2022 was my fantasy era, my adult fantasy era. Don't take that the wrong way. I really found some fantasy books that I loved this year. So I've got some books to talk about. These are not going to be all of the books that I read in 2022 or all of the ones that I really loved in 2022 because I actually am going to have quite a few fantasy books on my best of 2022 list, which we're here for. We are here for. I'm so excited that I'm actually finding what I really like in fantasy and I'm reading more of that. And I'm enjoying it. So without further ado, let's talk about some of these books. These are all ones that I gave 4.5, or 5 stars, but did not quite make that top 10 list of best books of the year. The first two I'm going to be talking about, I did already kind of talk about a little bit in other genres. The first one is Year of the Reaper by Micaiah Lucier. This is a YA fantasy. I do think that it reads definitely as an older YA. So even if you are relatively new to maybe reading adult fantasy, this might be one that you might like. I think that if you read a ton of fantasy books, this might not be a book for you. But I found that it was still very accessible without being like dramatic and YA feeling, if that makes sense. So if you're into that, this might be a book for you. It's about a man who is on a quest to find the assassin of the queen. He meets this other person, this other girl who steals his horse. Like that's their meeting. And it was just a lot of fun. The banter between the two main characters is great. It's taking place on the backdrop of the Black Death, the like bubonic plague. And yeah, I enjoyed this. I gave this 4.5 stars. It was probably one of my best YA books of the year. And then I already talked about Half a Soul in my romance video, but this is a Regency era like rom-com book. But it's got, you know, fairies and a deal with a demon and selling her half of her soul to that said demon. For those of you that read and really enjoyed Scales and Sensibility, especially for those of you that are reading the Spiffbo books, I do think that Half a Soul would be a good book for you. And then I actually read a fantasy-esque graphic novel this year and really enjoyed all 3 of them. This is volume 1 of Lore Olympus. This is such an adorable Hades and Persephone retelling, as you can tell. Just like the dynamics between the two characters is just perfectly encompassed in this title or in this cover. The art style is absolutely beautiful. It's this purples and blues and pinks, and it was just fantastic. I gave all of these 4.5 stars, I believe. And they're very quick reads. I mean, I read them usually in like 1 or 2 sprints when I'm doing reading sprints. They're very quick, but they're just a delight. This used to be a webtoons comic. I believe volume 4 will be coming out mid 2024 as like a print book. And this is one of those types of graphic novels that I will purchase. I don't tend to purchase graphic novels because I can usually read them on Hoopla or Scribd and I can just read them on my iPad, but Lore Olympus is definitely one. Lore Olympus and Heartstopper. Those are the 2 that I will purchase like physical copies of. This might be my most controversial opinion of the entire year. Well, not the entire year. My worst books of the year will be coming out this week, so but I really enjoyed Book of Night by Holly Black. This is Holly's adult debut novel, and it definitely doesn't have anything to do with the Folk of the Air series, and it's very different than that, and maybe that's why people didn't like it. I don't know, but this really gave me like Shades of Magic vibes. Like it's a great urban fantasy. I really enjoyed it. This is about a woman who is not a likable character. Like she's definitely not likable. And in this world, people have shadows, and if you lose your shadow, that's a problem. And then there are magicians that can manipulate those shadows, also a problem. And yeah, I originally thought that this was a standalone and I didn't necessarily like the ending because of that, but as soon as I found out that it's actually a series or the start of a series, I was okay, because like it kind of set itself up for future books, but on Goodreads it didn't say that it was part of a series originally. So yeah, this is a book that I very much enjoyed. Then I have the newest Shauna McGuire, Where the Drowned Girls Go. I gave this one 4.5 stars. This is probably one of my favorites. I would say like top 3 or 4 of the 7. So top half. This is Cora's story, and Cora was one of my favorite characters in earlier books, specifically Beneath the Sugar Sky. She is plus size, and she is realizing that she wants to go to another school, that she would rather just forget about her world and not really lean into her world and like, you know, relishing that, but just forgetting about it. So she goes to this other school, and the contrast of atmosphere in this book is so different than other books that take place at Eleanor West School. And it was such a different environment, and it was fascinating to read about. And this is just one that I really liked. I actually read all of them again this year for Realmathon. Like, I did it over a weekend. I binged the entire series, and it was a lot of fun to reread. I definitely think that these series, or these books in this series, need to be binged. I think you get so much more from it. But that being said, most of the books got bumped up at least a full star rating upon reread, because when I first read them, the first like 2 books in the series I didn't really love. I think I gave them 3 stars, but upon rereading them and now knowing what's going on in the world and like just picking up other little clues and things like that, it was so good. And An Absent Dream is still my favorite of the series, but because I really like the Goblin Market, and I do think that the Goblin Market would probably be like as close to my world if I had one of these wonderful little worlds. That one would probably be the closest to like what I would probably design for my own brain. I don't know. This series is fantastic. I cannot wait to read 2023's release. Lastly, a book that when I read it, I thought was going to end up being one of my best books of the year. In fact, when I had hit 60 books, I did a best books of the year, or like ranking all of the books that I had read. And this one was very much near the top. So for it to not be in the top 10 is probably a testament to just like how good some of the books have been, which is interesting. And I'll talk about it more in that video. But I struggled finding my top 10 books, and I had a lot of problems, and I really didn't think that I had that good of a year because I didn't have 10 books that were standouts. But knowing that this book is not in the top 10, but for so long I thought it was going to be, it is a testament to like the good books that I have read this year. So with that being said, Malice by Heather Walter. Maybe the reason why it's not in the top 10 is because Misrule, which is the sequel to this, was such a huge disappointment to me. So what I would recommend is reading this as a standalone. I think it does fine as a standalone. This is a sapphic retelling of Sleeping Beauty where Aurora falls in love with Maleficent, and it comes like it's mostly from Maleficent's background, or like her perspective, and it's a really interesting villain origin story. Yes, there are like the villain monologues, especially at the end of the book. I don't hate those. I don't have a problem with those, but I think that this was really good. It was very like well done. The world building was beautiful. I could really imagine it. There was definitely no like white room syndrome or anything like that, and this just really felt like this dark magical fairy tale. So especially for a debut, I think that this was a fantastically done. Highly recommended, especially if you like fairy tale retellings or you like queer retellings. This is great. It also, I feel like, was very accessible. I don't think that it was a very like hard and fast fantasy type, like the classic fantasy tropes and things like that. So if you have problems reading fantasy, or you struggle to follow along and understand what's going on, this also might be a great book for you. Okay, those are some of the fantasy books that I read this year that I loved. Not all of them though. And if you've been on my channel for any length of time, you know what's missing. As usual, let me know down in the comments below what your favorite fantasy book of the year was. We'll start a recommendations thread down there. If you're not feeling chatty, you can do a dragon emoji. That is all I have for you today. If you are new here and you have not yet subscribed, there's a little red button that you can do so down below the video. If you'd like to hang out with me more, the links to my Instagram, Goodreads, Twitter, and my Patreon are linked in the description down below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.